Hello, all, and welcome back to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. My name is Cobb Pepitone, and I'm joined here today with lead vocalist of the band All the Pretty Things, Logan Tabor. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
That's awesome to hear. First off, I want to say uh, congratulations on releasing the song. It's been a couple of weeks, but your new song, Teenage Lines, absolutely love it. It's such a great song. And I want to
Yeah, thank
thank
you.
you for coming on here today. To start off, your band, All the Pretty Things, how did that come together? Like, all of you have been part of different bands in the past. So, how did you all meet? And how did All the Pretty Things come about?
Yeah, so man, it's funny. We all kind of met individually. So like I've known Worth, the one of the guitarists and the producer for years. We've been both in Wilmington, North Carolina, in various bands, and kind of crossed paths a million times, but never actually worked together too much. Um, and he knew Tristan, the other guitarist, and Tristan knew Jeremy, the drummer. And so we kind of just started throwing all these ideas around, emailing them back and forth, working on stuff, and everything was clicking really well. And it just, all those connections kind of individually led us to one another, and that's the lineup today.
Ah, okay. And with being part of different bands, with Mood Mechanics, Thousand Foot Crutch, and all the other ones, how much of those previous bands have come to influence the sound of All the Pretty Things?
Oh, I think all of them. Mood Mechanics for me was more of like an experimental indie rock kind of thing. Kind of had a good Radiohead vibe, lots of ambient sounds and deep lyrics.
Right.
And that still leads into what we're doing now. And obviously, the heavier bands we've all been in definitely make their appearance in the music as well. And I think you're kind of hearing a little bit of all of those influences from those previous bands for sure.
Definitely within Teenage Line, there's a lot of I listened to all the previous bands as well to get an idea of how the sound is coming together, and I definitely hear like influences and little bits and techniques that come from each of them.
For
And
sure.
speaking of the techniques, specifically songwriting, the press release we were sent has a lot of different. They wrote out different ways each of you have to go about the songwriting process, and yours stuck out to me specifically. It said you like to keep a little notebook full of phrases on you that you go back to and reference and stuff. And as an aspiring lyricist myself, I actually follow that same
Hmm.
technique, and I do find it pretty useful. But coming from you, I want to know, how do you know which words and phrases could fit into each song? Like, obviously, keeping a notebook, you have so many jumbled, disjointed ideas. How do
Yeah.
you remember which ones would be good and which ones would fit into specific songs?
Man, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. Honestly, it's not so much remembering what's what. So I've got like these at this point three pretty big books full of
Oh, wow.
stuff, um, and there's a lot of really good stuff in there that I don't want to let anything go to waste.
Right.
And um, a lot of times when we come up with a new musical idea or something like that, I will listen to that song, just the instrumentation over and over again, and kind of get it really beaten down into my head so that I have fully ingested like the vibe and the mood and the shifts in energy and that sort of thing. And then if I need to, a lot of times I'll write just new lyrics. Something will just pop out at me because of the
Right.
instrumentation. But if I'm struggling for something, I'll jump back in those books, and I wouldn't say it's remembering so much as I'll read through everything. And when something obviously when something seems as though it'll fall in line rhythmically with what I'm going for, that's a good starting point. But really for me, it's almost like each one of these songs requires the vocalist to be a different character,
Right.
like to role. So it's more like when I see that line that this sounds ridiculous, but when I see the line that that reads the way the song sounds, fits the character, fits the persona.
Right. Okay. And you mentioned you had like three full notebooks. Are we talking like full size notebooks or like mini pocket ones?
Here, I'll grab them for you right now.
Oh, cool.
They're they're these guys.
Oh, nice.
They're books. I mean, they're probably at least 100 pages in each one of them. I would think so. Yeah, I just keep them pretty close at all times.
Definitely. It's because you never know when something is going to hit. Because I know from personal experience, like I'll just be sitting at like a restaurant one day and then just a random line will pop into my head. Then I'm like, well, I can't forget that. It could come in use later.
Yeah, cell phones are a great tool for that, man. My cell phone,
Yeah.
not only books full right now, but my cell phone's also
Yeah.
jacked full of stuff I haven't transferred over to these books yet. So
I know that feeling. But with you saying that brings me up an interesting question. Do you prefer maybe not like jotting ideas down, but like full on songwriting? Do you prefer paper and pencil or pen, or do you prefer digitally typing it out?
man, I like writing with my hands. If I don't do it, I don't do it as often as I should, and so sometimes it's a little painful. It's like gotten art for me. But when I finally go to really put it together, I like to have everything jotted down in pen. It just feels a little more organic, and I don't know. I got to use the cell phone sometimes. Like if I like you said, if I'm just out and about in public or whatever, I don't necessarily have these books on me. So I sometimes have to jot ideas down. But yeah, when it comes to the full thing finally being written as one song, I definitely got to put it in the notebooks.
Oh yeah, definitely. And so you mentioned pen specifically. You like writing in.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting, because I've come across artists who prefer both ways. Personally, I'm pen for some reason. I think that's just how I started doing it, and I've yet to change. But like having something written down permanent forces you to kind of look. At least this is from my perspective. Having pen forces you to look at it and have it permanent instead of being like, I don't like that, and you can easily erase it and forget about it. Is
Hmm.
that similar to you? Like you have it in pen, so it has to stay there. You can't change that specific line without rewriting it.
No, it's more like, I mean, yeah, I totally get what you're saying. But I'll make like little adjustments to syllables here and there, which means I need to sort of rewrite a word or
Right.
think of a word or something. But I like that it causes me to really wonder whether or not I should change this thing. And if I do, I cross it out and I write the word somewhere above it or below it. Um, and that's no big deal on me mentally, although I mean at times it's painful to like kill your darlings, but
Yeah.
for me it's honestly at the end of the day when I have gone back and made changes and I get to see stuff scribbled out and see the old idea that was sitting there, it's pretty cool to go back and like see the evolution of your thought process like that.
And your personal way of writing songs, specifically lyrics, there's different and unique techniques from your other band members. For example, Worth has a more scientific approach, him being the producer and all, while Tristan, it said, likes to let the song speak to him. How do each of these different techniques and approaches culminate to create the All the Pretty Things creative process?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. And so with Tristan, letting the song come to him, I can relate to that a lot with the lyricism and the melody and stuff like that too. So I feel like it's funny. Tristan and I start out, I think, a little more whimsical and just like artistic. Whatever pops in there, pops in there. We're just gonna let it flow. We don't have to have all the ideas right now. It doesn't have to be a solid thing. We just need to get the idea down since it was like fresh and organic. And then we can really hone in on it. Whereas Worth, almost from the start, like, and I don't know this to be true, but it seems like when he gets an idea in his head, like even if it's just an idea for a new riff, one riff, it's almost like he won't even start demoing that thing out until he's thought of the rest of the song,
Oh,
because he's
wow.
there all day just in his head, like analytically going about like how is this thing going to come together, and it's almost like he won't even put it down until it is starting to really come together. There's a cool dynamic there where guys like Tristan and I, who are kind of like la di da, here's we can kind of take him to Worth, and he'll really, help us hone in on those ideas, like pull us down out of the clouds and be like, yes, I love that you're feeling this energetic about it, but we know that this chord needs to take us into the chorus in this way. We need the tension here so we can have the relief here and that sort of thing. And he kind of like reins us in. I feel like in a very good way. I'm not saying
Right.
a way other than a positive way. He's an extremely smart dude, and he just has a good ear for like what's going to work, what's not going to work, and how a song will flow.
Wow. That's amazing. I'm not quite musically inclined, so having that thought process and just being able to think of an entire song before jotting any of it down is crazy to me.
Yeah,
Because I'm very much of a creative person. Not I the technical side is a bit beyond me.
right, right. Me too. At certain times, like I know what I want to hear, and I know how to describe how to get there.
Right.
Worth knows how to mathematically, scientifically, technically get there. So that's been a cool thing for the working relationship between Worth and the rest of the guys. Is like we all do feel strongly about what we want to hear, and we can describe it very well to him as a producer. So the communication is basically like, "Hey, I want to hear it like this," and he's like, "Okay, here we go." You know?
Yeah, I can imagine. And you talk about you and Tristan being very similar in the process, but Tristan is also a bit further away from the rest of you in San Antonio, while the rest of you are in North Carolina. You and Worth closer than Jeremy too. So how does that distance affect? I know you were talking before how you were sending files back and forth,
Mhm.
and is there any ever times where you can like get together in person, and is that different from doing it quote unquote remotely?
Yeah, there are times when we get together in person, and like Worth and I get together all the time, obviously, because we're in
Right.
town and we're in session tonight. But with guys like Tristan and Jeremy, they do send us their ideas remotely, and as a group, we kind of all talk about them and get ourselves on the same page. How can we tweak this, or maybe we should move this part over here, and we kind of build the song based on everyone's ideas preliminarily, and then we can get everybody in the same room and really focus in on getting the takes and the tones right, and making sure performance is there and emotion is there and that sort of thing. And so honestly, I certainly don't feel like it's a hindrance by any means, to do the remote thing. Honestly, if anything, kind of kind of makes us tighter somehow, because I think it would honestly be harder to get four guys in the studio together as often as Worth and I get in the studio together. Even if we all did live in the same town, people's schedules and lives, and
Mhm.
at least this way, we can all stay productive on our own schedules.
Right.
If one guy writes something at 1 o'clock in the morning and the rest of us are asleep, it's in our inbox first thing in the morning, and we can all sort of talk about it and refine it. And then when it comes time to actually track the final for the record, we all get together. So.
Okay. You mind if I take notes on that? Because we're working on an album over here at Montclair, and as you said, getting everyone together is proving quite the challenge.
Yeah, it can be, man. It's crazy. But yeah, do what you got to do, dude. I think it's a great way to work. I mean, it lets people do things on their own time instead of like forcing
Right.
inspiration right on the spot. Because well, we got an hour together in the studio. You better have some ideas. Like it doesn't really work out that way.
Right. And how much of Teenage Lines, or in the entire creative process of Teenage Lines, was remote versus in studio together?
Um. Well, me and Worth did everything vocally in the studio together. I think this is kind of a unique one. Worth and Tristan did all the guitars together in the studio, and
Okay.
then me, Worth, and Jeremy were all together for when Jeremy tracked drums. Um, so it's kind of all over the place. Yeah, a mixture of remote and in person. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
That's really interesting. And with the new song Teenage Lines, which you just released a couple of weeks ago, while going through it, I've noticed a lot of lyrics that can, in a way, relate to a divine connotation, for lack of a better word.
Oh, sure.
Lines like, "Do they know about the heavy hands or the plans you had for me? I've been knowing the devil got faith in me, and even 100 wooden crosses wouldn't set me free." With these lyrics and themes throughout the song, what is the message that Teenage Lines is trying to send?
Yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that. There are a lot of what some could see as potentially religious
Right.
connotations, um, but it's really not. It's there; those are meant more as metaphors rather than actual, textual religious references. But it's so if we think of the devil as just the concept of evil or bad behavior in general, that's really more of what I'm getting at. And then the crosses would be, the potential for relief from that embodied devil. But really, so the message of the song is more about how, as we're going through this life and we're all having our unique experiences, our unique relationships. A lot of stuff doesn't exactly go as we plan it to, and this age, I think people do their best to kind of tear each other down when they get in arguments or don't agree on something, and they want to turn whoever disagrees with them into the devil, like shame them, even
Right.
publicly. So for me, from my standpoint, it's like when someone tries to you know, demonize me and make me into this thing that I'm not. I just kind of have to say to myself, well, if you want me to be the devil, then the devil I will be, and I'm going to be this way in your mind forever, and it's not going to change how I view myself or how I know I treat people well or how I proceed in my life.
I see. Yeah, no, no, I definitely know that. And with that, what is a teenage line? And as seen in the song, how is a teenage line able to blow the world's mind?
Yeah, so that's a bit of the old sarcasm there. So teenage lines would be like when somebody who is very opinionated, very fiery, has something to say about someone or something, some ideal out there in the world, but they're not necessarily the most eloquent human being. They tend to just lash out in these
Oh,
really poorly thought out, you know, text tirades on the internet or wherever people decide to be brave now,
right.
uh, and it usually comes across as this very like juvenile, angry little the teenage lines things. It's like, well, if you're gonna really try to attack somebody and prove them wrong or open a discussion or have a debate, you should really refine the way you speak instead of going about it with all these teenage lines, and the blow the whole world's mind one line at a time was more sarcasm. It's like, oh yeah, you can say it, you can blow everybody's mind with your teenage lines.
With that explanation, I can see that because a big thing that I've noticed about you and your bandmates is you all share a very similar sense of humor,
Hmm.
and with that explanation, I can see that humor coming through in the song with that specific sarcasm of teenage lines because, like you said, a lot of people are brave on the internet because consequences are minimized there,
Yeah,
and
sure.
people say a lot of what they are afraid to say in public because of that.
Yeah, for sure.
What can we see from the future? I've heard you were working on a record overall, and can you tell us anything about that? Like how
Yeah,
far we are with that?
yeah, we're a good bit of the way into that. It's going to be 10 or 11 songs, and we have a lot of it written. Pretty much everything as far as instrumental stuff is written. I'm sure there are a couple things here and there we may want to tweak, but most of the instruments are in place. A lot of the vocals are in place. Most of the hooks are written, and yeah, we're just kind of getting in there every week. once or twice a week and just like going for it, getting as many final takes as we can possibly get. But yeah, it's well underway, and we're really excited about it. I think everything on the record will feel really good on a record with the song Teenage Lines. You know, that's sort of our and everything kind of ticks those same boxes, and it's going to sound like we had a vision, which I'm really proud of and excited about.
Nice. That's awesome. And I caught something that you just said, that like most things were written. So did you start recording this record and fill in different parts along the way? Or did you have like everything written and planned out before going into physically record?
Man, it was kind of more like a one song at a time thing. You know, somebody would come to the table with a really good instrumental idea, or like in one instance, I came to the table with like a vocal part that I wanted to see come to life, and we wrote the instruments around that. But in most cases, it's like Worth or Tristan will have a pretty solid idea for the instrumentation in a song, and we'll start to get it demoed out. And then from there, once we lock into those parts that we know we like, we kind of retrack all the parts with like final takes, more tight performances, and that sort of thing, and the tones that we know we want. Right. But then after that, there is a little bit of a puzzle piece thing going on. So we have all these instrumental songs, like pretty much solid, exactly how we want them to be. And then it's my job to write all the vocals to them. And for me, a lot of times, you know, I just kind of focus in on something that hits me first. Like I'll be driving around in the car and I'll just be like, oh God, I've got the chorus for that one song. So I'll lay down the chorus, and if we all like it, I kind of just like dig into that song for a while. You know, I'll take on the bridge and whatever parts and just make it the actual song. But it's different every time. It's so funny. We're just like, and we're trying to make a record, and we want to get it out into the public as soon as we reliably can, you know, with producing a quality product in mind as well. But it's just kind of one of those things where, what ideas did you have this week, Logan? Let's do those tonight. Let's bust them out and just keep putting this thing together, you know?
That's cool. And what about, so obviously you mentioned stuff with the record. Any update, any news on tours, any plans for that going into 2023?
Nothing perfectly solidified yet, but we are working on tours for 2023, probably late 2023, just so we can get this record done and be present for that and not cut any corners. But we're talking to some different folks about jumping on something, and hopefully we can get out your way and you can come out and we can do another interview.
Totally. I would love that. If you want to, I mean, the Montclair area is always open.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. And so I do want to ask some questions now regarding college radio as a whole and vinyl. So with today's day and age, there's so many different ways to listen to music. We've got streaming, vinyl, CDs, radio, the whole 9 yards. What do you believe, or what importance do you believe that college radio still holds for the music industry and for the musical world in general?
Oh man, I think it's extremely important. Man, one of the reasons being is that, well, at least to my knowledge, you know, college radio stations aren't paid to play certain songs and that sort of thing. You know, there's no incentive for you to play anything other than what you like necessarily. And so it gives a ton of people an opportunity to access music they otherwise wouldn't have heard. You know, if they just turned on a regular radio station, it's a lot of the same stuff over and over again for many months at a time. And I think the DJs at college radio stations and the programmers at college radio stations have a lot more creative freedom. It seems to me. Do you feel that way?
It's been a little bit since I've been back at radio. I did recently graduate, but I definitely do feel that way. I recently bought a new car back in like July, and they gave us Sirius XM for a little bit. And my music lies heavily in Octane, but I did notice it was a lot of the same songs, which is cool when you recognize a song, but like at some point it's just like, okay, but what's new? And with college radio, you get that. For example, I learned about All the Pretty Things and Teenage Lines from college radio.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It just, and like I said, it allows people to be exposed to a lot of different music they otherwise wouldn't have had an opportunity to get access to.
For you personally, which way, what way do you like to consume music? Do you prefer vinyl, CDs, streaming, radio? Which one is it?
Man, currently, I I have moved recently, so my vinyl setup has not been unpacked. So
Oh, okay.
now I do enjoy my vinyls because I like that nice, gritty, organic sound, you know. And I just like the physical experience of like the ritual of putting on a vinyl, selecting a vinyl, pulling it out, being all careful with it, and putting the needle down on it.
Yeah.
But I think here lately, because I've been moving around so much, I've been doing like I'll subscribe always to like the highest fidelity subscription I can get to like Spotify or Tidal or something like that.
Right.
Like all the lossless files and that sort of thing. And man, I've got a really nice speaker system in my car. That's kind of like my reference machine, you know? It's just where I listen to everything and how I'm able to compare like what our stuff sounds like to what this Stone Temple Pilots record sounds like and all that stuff. And
Okay.
yeah, so I think it is important to listen to high quality music on good speakers for sure. Like at home, I also have a subwoofer and two really nice like hi-fi speakers that are pretty versatile. You can either Bluetooth with them or you can plug them up to anything. But I've just got some pretty like home entertainment grade, like elevated home entertainment grade reference monitors and a sub. You know, so I take it seriously. I mean, I love getting some high quality files and playing them through great speakers. It's really rewarding when you hear stuff come out like that. I mean,
Oh,
it changes.
definitely. Yeah. Is your car like your sanctuary for screaming along to the songs you love?
Absolutely. Has been for 30 years, dude.
Yeah. There's no better feeling than that.
Yeah, dude, it's the best. And you know, you pull up next to somebody in traffic and they're like, "What is this guy?" And you're like, "I don't care." Dude, it's great. Fantastic.
I love that feeling so much. And one final question. If people wanted to learn more about you, where could they find you guys?
Pretty much everywhere, I would think. Instagram at All the Pretty Things Official. I think that's our Facebook handle as well. You know, YouTube. We've got our YouTube channel up there. Really looking to push Spotify followers. You know, I didn't even know there was like a follow button in
Yeah.
Spotify. But apparently, yeah, there is. And you know, the more Spotify followers we get, the more we're able to like access features of that platform. So that's like a big help for artists.
Oh, really?
So yeah, that's something we're pushing. So we're just All the Pretty Things on Spotify and Apple Music, same deal. Yeah, that's just pretty much anywhere you can consume music, and then Instagram, Facebook, YouTube,
Awesome.
Twitter.
Well, you already know I'm followed on Spotify.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you, man, for sure.
Yeah, no problem. Logan, thank you so much for coming on today and congratulations on Teenage Lines. And I look forward to the record.
Man, we really appreciate you checking us out and helping us get out there. And I really appreciate you asking some really cool, insightful questions. This has been fun.